In the early 1960s, the American automobile industry stood at the height of its power. The United States was the undisputed epicenter of global car culture, where chrome, steel, and innovation merged into machines that symbolized freedom, wealth, and ambition. Among these rolling icons, one stood apart not only for its elegance but for its sheer sense of purpose, a car that transcended luxury to become a cultural symbol, a political stage, and a work of design that would change automotive philosophy. The 1961 Lincoln Continental was not merely a car, it was the embodiment of a nation's confidence, a statement of restrained power wrapped in one of the most refined bodies ever created by an American manufacturer. At a time when Cadillac was producing vehicles with flamboyant fins and Buick's designs gleamed with extravagant ornamentation, the Lincoln Continental appeared as a revelation. It was smaller than its 1960 predecessor, yet grander in presence. Its form was pure, smooth, and timeless, eliminating the excesses of the 1950s and introducing a minimalist design language that would influence not only the automotive industry but also architecture and industrial design for decades. Its clean lines, slab sides, and perfectly proportioned body made it instantly recognizable, a sculpture in motion. The car was both classic and modern, elegant yet bold, and no American vehicle before or after carried quite the same aura of grace and authority. The story of the 1961 Lincoln Continental begins with a crisis. In the late 1950s, Ford Motor Company was struggling with its Lincoln division. Sales were weak, design direction was confused, and the brand, despite its prestige, was failing to capture the imagination of the American elite. Meanwhile, General Motors' Cadillac dominated the luxury market with confidence and flair. Ford's management knew something radical had to be done to save Lincoln from irrelevance. Enter Elwood Engel, one of the most talented designers in Ford's team. He proposed a revolutionary approach: clean, simple, understated luxury. Engel envisioned a car that would abandon the excessive chrome and flamboyant shapes of the past in favor of geometric clarity and refined elegance. The result was a car originally intended for the Thunderbird line, a four-door convertible that was smaller but more refined. However, when Ford executives saw the prototype, they instantly realized that this was the perfect opportunity to reinvent Lincoln entirely. The Continental project was born almost overnight. By combining the Thunderbird's chassis with new engineering precision, Ford created what would become one of the most beautiful cars in American history. When it debuted in October 1960 as the 1961 model, the Lincoln Continental astonished the world. Its design was completely different from anything on the road. The front and rear ends were perfectly balanced, the fenders were straight and horizontal, and the grille was a masterpiece of symmetry. The car's body looked carved from a single block of metal, emphasizing the purity of its proportions. Most famously, the Continental introduced the concept of suicide doors, rear-hinged back doors that opened opposite to the front doors, creating an open and inviting cabin entry. This feature was not only elegant but practical, allowing dignitaries, business leaders, and presidents to step in and out gracefully during official ceremonies. The car's dimensions were substantial. Though smaller than its predecessor, it still stretched nearly 18 feet long and weighed over 5,000 pounds. Its proportions, however, were perfect. The hood was long and commanding, the roofline was flat and sophisticated, and the rear deck was short but solid. Every element was designed with purpose. The chrome was restrained, appearing only where it mattered, like jewelry on a tailored suit. The overall aesthetic was confident yet calm, evoking the same elegance that would later define mid-century modern architecture and furniture. Under the hood, the Lincoln Continental was equally impressive. It came equipped with a massive 430 cubic inch, 7.0-liter V8 engine producing around 300 horsepower, coupled with a smooth 3-speed automatic transmission. Despite its weight, the car accelerated gracefully and cruised silently, embodying the idea of effortless power. Engineers paid special attention to insulation and vibration damping, ensuring that passengers experienced one of the quietest rides in automotive history. The car was built to an exacting standard. Every Continental was inspected individually before leaving the factory, a practice rare even among luxury brands of the era. But what truly elevated the 1961 Lincoln Continental from luxury car to cultural icon was its association with the highest office in the land. It became the official car of the President of the United States, replacing the aging fleet of Cadillacs. The Continental's understated elegance matched the refined image that John F. Kennedy wanted to project. In a time of optimism and progress, the car became a moving symbol of the new frontier. Its stately presence at parades, state visits, and ceremonies became part of the Kennedy era's visual identity. Kennedy's preference for the Continental went beyond symbolism. He admired its simplicity and grace. The Secret Service worked with Ford to build a special version known as the SS-100X, a modified 1961 Lincoln Continental convertible with extended length, custom rear seats, communication systems, and removable roof panels. This car became one of the most famous vehicles in American history for both its prestige and its tragedy. On November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas, President Kennedy was riding in that very Continental when he was assassinated. The event forever etched the car's silhouette into collective memory. The image of the dark blue Lincoln gliding through Dealey Plaza became an indelible moment in time, a haunting reminder of an era's end. Despite that tragedy, the Continental's legacy endured. Rather than being remembered solely for that moment, it became an enduring symbol of sophistication and design excellence. Its clean, timeless styling stood apart from the gaudiness that would soon dominate the late 1960s automotive landscape. The car represented the pinnacle of American craftsmanship, an era when automobiles were not just transportation, but an extension of cultural identity. Driving a 1961 Lincoln Continental was a sensory experience unlike any other. When one approached it, the heavy chrome door handles felt solid and purposeful. Opening the suicide doors revealed an interior that was as luxurious as any living room. Plush leather seats, fine wood trim, and elegantly arranged instrumentation conveyed both comfort and authority. The steering wheel was large and thin, evoking precision and control, while the dashboard was cleanly laid out, emphasizing symmetry and order. Every switch, every surface, reflected meticulous attention to detail. Even the trunk, massive and precisely lined, showcased craftsmanship of the highest order. One of the Continental's engineering achievements was its focus on safety and durability. Ford's designers built the car with an exceptionally rigid structure, improving ride quality and reducing body flex. The doors were among the strongest ever made, closing with a satisfying thud that communicated solidity and confidence. Hydraulic systems controlled the convertible tops and windows, ensuring smooth operation with minimal effort. Lincoln engineers also pioneered features like automatic door locks and advanced climate control systems, further emphasizing comfort and security for high-profile passengers. Another distinctive feature was its production philosophy. The 1961 Lincoln Continental was hand-assembled in many stages, using a quality control process that rivaled Rolls-Royce standards. Each vehicle underwent over 200 quality inspections before delivery. Ford even offered a 2-year, 24,000-mile warranty, unheard of at the time, which underscored their faith in the product. This dedication to perfection earned the Continental the 1961 Bronze Medal for Design Excellence from the Industrial Designers Institute, a rare honor for an automobile. The Continental's impact on design cannot be overstated. It influenced not only future Lincoln models but also competitors who sought to capture its sense of proportion and refinement. The long, straight lines and formal elegance became a defining aesthetic of the 1960s luxury car scene. Even European manufacturers took notice. Mercedes-Benz designers openly admired the Continental's balance and simplicity, incorporating similar cues into their later S-Class models. The car's presence in film, photography, and advertising also cemented its status as a cultural icon. From political motorcades to Hollywood productions, it became shorthand for power, dignity, and timeless taste. The Lincoln Continental of 1961 represented a turning point in American design philosophy. It demonstrated that true luxury was not about excess, but about refinement. Where the 1950s celebrated extravagance, the 1960s introduced discipline, balance, and maturity. The Continental captured that transition perfectly. It was as much a product of art as it was of engineering, a harmony of steel and emotion that resonated with an entire generation. Driving it was not merely about movement, it was about presence. When the Continental rolled down city avenues or pulled up in front of a hotel, people stopped and stared. It was a vehicle that demanded respect without shouting for it. The low hum of its V8 engine was like the voice of authority, quiet, controlled, and commanding. Inside, the ride was smooth as silk, isolating occupants from the chaos of the outside world. It was the ultimate symbol of American confidence in the age of Camelot. As the 1960s progressed, the Continental continued to evolve, but the 1961 model remained the purest expression of its philosophy. Later models grew larger, heavier, and more ornate, but the first edition's proportions and restraint retained their magic. Collectors today regard the 1961 to 1963 Continentals as the most desirable of the series, not just because of their rarity but because they captured the perfect balance between design, performance, and symbolism. To own a 1961 Lincoln Continental was to possess a piece of history, not only mechanical but cultural. It spoke of refinement, intellect, and confidence. Business leaders, celebrities, and politicians gravitated toward it because it projected strength without aggression. It was the car of thinkers and leaders, not merely showmen. Even today, when one sees a restored 1961 Continental gliding along a modern highway, it radiates an aura that few cars can match. The car's engineering brilliance also contributed to its enduring charm. The suspension system was designed to absorb imperfections in the road effortlessly, giving passengers the sensation of floating. The steering was light yet precise, and the brakes, though massive, operated with elegance rather than brute force. Every element of the driving experience was tuned to achieve harmony. The Continental wasn't built to race, it was built to glide, to impress, and to last. In the broader context of American history, the Lincoln Continental 1961 symbolized a time when design and diplomacy shared the same stage. It reflected the optimism of a nation reaching for the stars, literally, as the space race accelerated, and believed in the power of technology and style to define its identity. It was the car that carried presidents, ambassadors, and visionaries. It became a witness to triumphs and tragedies alike, yet through it all, its elegance remained unshaken. By the time the first generation ended in 1969, the Continental had established itself as a legend. But the 1961 model, with its purity of form and the aura of Kennedy-era optimism, remained the defining moment. It was more than a car, it was an era captured in metal, a poem written in chrome and steel. The years following the debut of the 1961 Lincoln Continental solidified its reputation not only as a triumph of design but as a cultural phenomenon. Its influence stretched far beyond the automotive industry. Architects, industrial designers, filmmakers, and even furniture makers drew inspiration from its geometric purity and restrained beauty. The Continental represented an America that believed in progress through sophistication rather than extravagance. It was a statement that form and function could coexist harmoniously, that elegance could be more powerful than excess. In 1961, when one stood before a Lincoln Continental, the car exuded a sense of proportion that was almost architectural. Its design language echoed the minimalist ideals of Mies van der Rohe's "less is more" philosophy. The flat surfaces, the continuous beltline, and the unbroken roofline created a sense of calm authority. The car looked like it was designed with a ruler and compass, yet it possessed undeniable emotion. The doors closed with a reassuring click, the engine purred rather than roared, and the interior felt like the command center of modern luxury. For the men and women who drove it, the Continental was not a display of wealth, it was a declaration of taste. It suggested intellect, power, and quiet confidence. It appealed to leaders who did not need to shout to be heard. That's why so many diplomats, CEOs, and statesmen gravitated toward it. When the President of the United States rode in one, it was not only an act of practicality but of symbolism. The car communicated the dignity of office, the balance of power, and the grace of leadership. The engineering team behind the Lincoln Continental paid the same attention to detail as the designers. Every component, from the engine to the upholstery, was crafted with precision. The 430 cubic inch V8 engine provided smooth, effortless acceleration, while the heavy-duty suspension delivered a serene ride even over rough terrain. The car's body was welded with extraordinary care, with tolerances that surpassed most production vehicles of the era. The quality was so high that Ford produced fewer than 25,000 units that year, focusing on excellence over volume. This exclusivity only enhanced its prestige. Inside, the Continental was an experience of subtle opulence. The dashboard was symmetrical and horizontal, creating a sense of calm balance. The gauges were simple, elegant, and illuminated softly at night. Chrome was used sparingly, only to accentuate key features, while the rest of the cabin was dominated by rich leather and fine materials. Every seat felt like a throne, with ample legroom and carefully designed contours. The rear compartment, in particular, was designed for comfort during long journeys or ceremonial processions. Air conditioning, power windows, and a sophisticated radio system made the Continental a technological marvel of its time. The suicide doors, one of the car's most iconic features, became a hallmark of prestige. They opened wide to create an unobstructed entry, turning every arrival into an event. For politicians, celebrities, and dignitaries, this feature was more than convenience, it was theatrical. It symbolized openness and grace, perfectly aligning with the ideals of the early 1960s. Even today, the sight of those doors opening evokes a sense of grandeur that few cars can replicate. But beyond aesthetics and comfort, the Lincoln Continental had an emotional resonance that few vehicles achieved. It represented a specific moment in history, a time when optimism was woven into the fabric of American life. The nation was venturing into space, exploring new frontiers, and embracing modernism in art, architecture, and industry. The Continental became the physical embodiment of that confidence. It wasn't aggressive like a muscle car or ostentatious like a showpiece, it was calm, commanding, and dignified. It mirrored the American spirit at its most self-assured. As the 1960s unfolded, the Lincoln Continental continued to evolve, but the original 1961 model remained the benchmark. Subtle refinements were introduced each year, slightly modified grilles, improved engines, updated interiors, but the essence of the design remained untouched. It was as though Lincoln had achieved perfection and wisely chose not to disturb it. The Continental's reputation grew internationally, appearing in films, diplomatic convoys, and the private collections of royalty and celebrities. One of the most memorable aspects of the Continental's legacy is its association with motion pictures. Hollywood fell in love with its cinematic presence. Its sleek profile and commanding elegance made it the perfect vehicle for characters of power and mystery. It appeared in countless films and television series throughout the 1960s and beyond, from crime dramas to political thrillers. Its silhouette became shorthand for authority and prestige. When a Lincoln Continental appeared on screen, it instantly established tone, class, seriousness, and power. Even after the tragedy of President Kennedy's assassination, Ford continued to produce presidential Lincolns, though with greater security modifications. The car's symbolism had become so powerful that it was impossible to replace. It became a paradox, both a symbol of elegance and a vessel of memory. Yet over time, it transcended its association with tragedy and reclaimed its place as a masterpiece of design. The influence of the 1961 Continental extended into future generations. Its design DNA can be seen in later Lincolns, particularly in the 1964 to 1969 models, which retained the slab-sided look and the dignified stance. Even decades later, when Lincoln introduced new models in the 2000s and 2010s, designers consciously referenced the 1961 Continental's lines and proportions. The car became a perpetual source of inspiration, a design that never truly went out of style. From a cultural standpoint, the Continental also became a symbol of American craftsmanship. It was a car that demanded hand-built precision, at a time when mass production dominated the industry. Each vehicle was an expression of pride and artistry, a reminder that even in a world of assembly lines, excellence could still come from human hands. Collectors and restorers today still marvel at the precision of the 1961 Continental's panel gaps, the quality of its materials, and the grace of its mechanics. But perhaps the most striking aspect of the Lincoln Continental story is its endurance as an emotional symbol. Cars often become obsolete, fading from memory as technology advances. Yet the 1961 Continental remains as relevant as ever. It has been restored, reimagined, and celebrated by generations of enthusiasts. Its timeless design speaks across decades, reminding us that beauty and purpose are eternal. Owning one today is not just about nostalgia, it is about participating in a legacy. Collectors who drive restored 1961 Continentals describe the sensation as spiritual. The car glides with a quiet confidence that modern vehicles rarely achieve. The steering, though gentle, has weight and character. The engine hums with authority. Every mile feels ceremonial, as if one were part of a parade of history. It is a car that turns ordinary streets into boulevards and ordinary moments into events. Its rarity only adds to its allure. Because of its meticulous production process, fewer were made than many of its contemporaries, making pristine examples extremely valuable. Auction houses regularly feature restored Continentals as centerpiece items, with collectors bidding passionately for a chance to own one. But more than investment value, it's the car's spirit that attracts people. To sit behind the wheel of a Continental is to feel connected to a lost era of design purity, when America built machines not just to move, but to inspire. In design schools and museums, the 1961 Lincoln Continental is often studied as an example of perfect proportion. The car's overall balance, long hood, short rear deck, and low stance, creates a visual rhythm that appeals to human perception on a subconscious level. Its designers understood that elegance was not about ornament but about geometry, and they achieved it with mathematical precision. It is often compared to fine architecture or sculpture, not simply because of its beauty but because of the thoughtfulness embedded in every line. Even in its mechanical details, the Continental revealed sophistication. Its engine bay was meticulously organized, its wiring harnesses neatly routed, and its components finished with care. The car was designed for longevity, not disposability. Mechanics who work on them today still praise the engineering discipline that went into their construction. There was a sense of pride in every bolt, every seam, every joint. It was built to last, to represent the very best of what America could produce. Over the decades, as automotive trends shifted toward efficiency and minimalism, the Continental's grandeur could have seemed outdated. But instead, it aged gracefully. It became a reminder that size, when balanced with proportion and taste, could be beautiful. Its presence on the road still commands attention, not through noise or flash, but through quiet majesty. In many ways, the 1961 Lincoln Continental symbolizes the end of an era, the last great expression of American automotive elegance before the cultural turbulence of the late 1960s and 1970s. It came from a time when optimism was still unshaken, when style and confidence guided design, and when craftsmanship was a matter of pride. It stands as a monument to that golden age, its smooth lines whispering stories of parades, processions, and the promise of the future. The car's influence also extended to Lincoln's identity as a brand. Before the Continental, Lincoln had struggled to define itself. After 1961, it became synonymous with dignity and precision. The Continental gave Lincoln a design language and a sense of purpose that would carry it for decades. Even today, the Lincoln brand continues to draw upon the legacy of the 1961 model, celebrating it as the cornerstone of its history. As the decades rolled on, the Continental found a second life among enthusiasts and collectors who saw it not as a relic, but as a masterpiece. Custom builders and restorers began creating modern interpretations, updating the engine, adding modern brakes and suspensions, while preserving the car's classic silhouette. These restored Continentals became expressions of reverence and creativity, blending old-world craftsmanship with new-world technology. In every iteration, the essence of the original design remained untouched: elegance, balance, and authority. The Lincoln Continental's timeless appeal lies in its ability to connect emotion with engineering. It represents a bridge between art and industry, between history and modernity. It reminds us that machines can carry meaning, that design can tell stories, and that beauty, when created with sincerity, never fades. To stand before a 1961 Continental today is to stand before history. Its surfaces reflect the sky with quiet dignity, its presence commands respect without effort, and its soul speaks of a time when America built not only cars but dreams. The doors open, revealing an interior that smells of leather and legacy, and for a moment, time stands still. The ignition turns, the engine hums, and the car glides forward, graceful, steady, eternal. The 1961 Lincoln Continental remains, to this day, the most elegant presidential giant car ever built in the United States. It is not simply a product of engineering excellence, it is a cultural treasure. It captures the spirit of an era when power was graceful, when design was intelligent, and when luxury meant restraint. In a world of constant change, the Continental endures as a reminder that true elegance never goes out of style. It is the kind of car that defines generations, an icon that transcends time, politics, and fashion. Its beauty is not nostalgic, it is eternal. Long after its designers and drivers have passed into history, the 1961 Lincoln Continental continues to move hearts, just as it moved a nation 6 decades ago.